Thanks, Cathaoirleach. Just at the outset, I want to welcome this motion from Sinn Féin. It's a very important motion and important to so many people across the country. Like others, the Social Democrats' position on an emergency budget is very clear. We need one, and we need one now. However, the government continues to ignore our calls from this side of the House, as well as many calls from your own benches, Minister. While you're doing that, it's clear that many people in this country are suffering, people on all kinds of different levels of income. Frankly, it seems like you're completely out of touch with reality. So here's a little reminder. Inflation rose to over 8% in May. 1 in 5 people is now living in poverty. 1 in 3 households are now living in energy poverty. All major energy suppliers have implemented double-digit price hikes. Petrol is 41% more expensive than last year, and diesel is 45% more expensive. In Dublin, the average rent is now €1,972 per month, and the average childcare cost is €1,276 per month. So let's consider just what that actually means for families. So, take a family with 2 children who are renting. So what do those figures actually mean? How much do you need to earn in Dublin to afford to be able to pay rent and childcare solely? So just those 2 elements. How much do you need to be earning? So the average cost, as I say, of childcare is €1,276 and rent is €1,972. So with 2 children, you're talking about childcare costs of more than €4,500, right, per month. So the cost per annum of rent and childcare is €54,288. That's in Dublin. Average rent, average cost of childcare, more than €54,000. So how much do you need to earn to have that figure to pay for your rent and your childcare? So after tax and PRSI and USC, right? So that's what you need, 54,000. So prior to tax and all of those other charges, you need €84,000 of a gross income if you're a single parent to be able to afford that rent and childcare. You need pre-tax gross income of €76,800. €76,800 if you're a married couple with 1 income. And you need gross income of €64,424 if you're a married couple with 2 incomes. Right? They are extraordinary figures, Minister. This is before you feed or clothe any of the household, before you heat your home, before you put fuel in a car and pay tax and insurance and that, and things like health insurance or pension contributions, much less any other luxuries. So these are enormous figures, right, that you have to be earning between 64 and 84,000 just to pay those absolute basics of rent and childcare. Now, who can do that, Minister? The number of families that are in a position to actually do that are very, very limited. Minister, this is the reality of life in Ireland today, and it's completely unsustainable. Are you honestly asking people to wait until October in those circumstances? How many more people need to drop below the poverty line before you take action? And it's not just, of course, the Social Democrats and other opposition parties who are calling for immediate interventions. The ESRI agrees too. In a recent report, the ESRI outlined the need for targeted measures. Through stark analysis, it detailed how those with the least money are most adversely affected by inflation. This is because lower-income households must spend a far greater proportion of their income on energy and food. The ESRI also warned that tax cuts are not the solution, but instead targeted measures to protect struggling households, particularly lone parents, senior citizens and those with disabilities. Similar findings were also outlined in the Central Bank's economic letter. This document presented data showing how rural, low-income and older households were experiencing larger costs of living increases. This type of research should underpin the government's response. We need evidence-based decision-making and policy-making, Minister, not, kite-flying, the kind of stuff that is designed to appeal to certain sectors of the community. Targeted measures are needed, and the Social Democrats would start with a €10 increase to core social welfare rates, because social welfare rates are falling so far behind inflation. In the longer term, core social welfare rates, such as pensions, should be linked, of course, to the level set by the minimum essential standard of living, the research that has been done by that group. This is a standard of living below which no one should be expected to live, and we should set a goal for moving towards that level over, for example, a 3-year period. Additionally, an easily accessible hardship fund for people falling into fuel and food poverty must be established as a matter of urgency. The tone-deaf advice that struggling households should just contact their community welfare officer shows this government's lack of understanding of who can actually seek assistance from social welfare officers. This is why a new hardship fund with specific and well-communicated criteria is so urgently needed to assist people through this awful crisis. For hard-pressed parents facing up to €1,500 in back-to-school costs for each child, budget measures in October will simply be too late. That assistance is required now. Last year, a survey from the Irish League of Credit Unions revealed that 24% of parents go into debt when they are trying to pay back-to-school costs. Immediately, the government should return the back-to-school allowance to its 2010 levels, when it was paid at a rate of €200 per child under 12 and €305 for children over 12. In addition, the review of the school meals programme should be fast-tracked to ensure that any expansion of the programme can be done in advance of the new school year. And finally, regarding education, primary and secondary school must be made genuinely free. 100 years after the foundation of the state, schools are still fundraising. Parents are still scraping together money to pay for the gap in the cost of running a school compared to the cost of the capitation. This is for the most basic services: cleaning, insurance, overheads, electricity, keeping the place warm. Currently, the average back-to-school cost for primary is $1,200 and $1,500 for secondary education. That is by no means free education. To deliver free primary and secondary education, there must be no additional or hidden charges, such as voluntary contributions, school books or uniforms, because these disadvantage children hugely and, go against the whole principle of levelling the playing pitch for young children. Doing this would cost a total of €238 million, just 2.5% of the overall education budget. Surely we can afford that, Minister. Another area which needs urgent attention is disability supports. Given that disability-related welfare payments have not kept pace with growth in market income, in conjunction with the markedly higher cost of living with a disability, the standard of living among this group has fallen way below that of an ordinary worker. And for that reason, it's absolutely essential that we introduce a cost of disability payment. Minister, these are just some of the measures which you should be implementing now and in October. People are suffering. This is an emergency and it must be treated as such. People simply cannot wait. You cannot delay the kind of supports that people so desperately need just to survive. Will you please listen, Minister?
Thanks, everybody. Our next